physics.
Stay down, brakes.
Stay down, brakes. No, come back.
I only wish one of you had been in the car with me.
No.
From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. Happy Turkey Day. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And now broadcasting from the churn, that guy is Dr. Jim Jobin. This is Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Today is the day for the Thanksgiving slider, ladies and gentlemen. So whenever you and your family get together tonight and you start to lay out all those fun treats, you go over to the biscuit table first, okay? You get yourself the biscuit, you slap it in half, put some butter on there if you want to. You could toast that up a little bit, get that baked into the bread, or just take it nice, light, and fluffy, however you like to do it.
You've lost all credibility.
Then you go on over to the gravy, Nick, okay? Get a little bit of gravy on that bread.
No.
Smooth it in there.
Everything you're talking about is not what you do.
What do I do?
You completely misled me on the Thanksgiving Day sliders.
The fact that I don't enjoy them doesn't mean that I don't make them. Like, I make one.
No. What you make is not even a Thanksgiving Day slider.
What did you think
It's
I
a
make?
Whopper.
Yes.
Okay?
It's a
not-
turkey sandwich.
It's not.
I don't want bread inside of my bread. Putting stuffing in a roll is dumb.
The Thanksgiving Day slider happens the day after Thanksgiving.
This is
True.
probably true.
That is a Friday treat.
Yeah.
That is delightful.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
nice.
You take your turkey, you take your stuffing, you
Yes.
take your mashed potatoes and your gravy,
Cranberry.
No.
you take your cranberry,
No.
you put that all on some bread and you
Shouldn't
eat that.
do that. Why would you put the mashed potatoes and the stuffing inside of the bread? It's just starch inside of starch inside of starch. It's
So?
Is this your first Thanksgiving?
dumb. That's just dumb. Why
You're
would
just
you do
dumb.
that? That's just dumb. It's like
Yep.
it's like a Chex
Nick,
mix of
give the hat back to
carbs.
Jim.
Yeah.
Give him the hat back.
Gross. No.
Yep, you get the dunce hat.
Well, this is ridiculous because I didn't endanger fellow citizens on the road.
Nor did I.
Go to patreon.com/therapy and you can let us know what you guys think. Who deserves the dunce cap for today? I don't think it's Jim. I just don't think so.
I don't think Jim deserves the dunce cap of the day yet.
Okay. All right. I
First
accept.
question.
Yeah. I have a good 50 minutes to pull this thing off. I can keep myself out of trouble.
Jim's
No.
looking at that cap longingly.
Yeah.
I guarantee you can't keep yourself
I'm
out
gonna
of trouble.
try. I'm gonna try. So as you are hearing this, friends, it is Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
and we are
Thanksgiving Day.
wishing you and your families fun times. The ongoing joke in the therapy profession is that Thanksgiving has been keeping us in business for the last couple hundred years. So thank you, Thanksgiving, for bringing families together and allowing passive-aggressive criticisms and oversight of historical pain to reignite people's interest in therapeutic work. Thank you, Thanksgiving, for keeping us employed. And as you are listening to this, I'm hosting Thanksgiving, and my mom is coming into town.
Yes.
And I noticed that you contacted her.
I did.
I noticed that
We
you
have a
reached
guest
out to
next
her.
week.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering why Nick was suddenly pointing at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we have a guest next week.
Is it Jim's Batmom?
It is.
Is she going to be in the room?
Yes.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
So my mom, she's a patron of the show, and she commented or something on a past episode and was like, somebody said something about her. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be in Vegas for Thanksgiving. The fury with which Nick jumped through the internet. It was like, hey, Tracy, DM me. Don't if Jim deletes this, just look in your DMs. Like, I will have other messages. I will find you wherever you are. I would like you to come to the studio. Jacob and I officially
Next week
invite
or the
you.
week after?
Thanksgiving week.
So it'll be the Monday after Thanksgiving or
Monday
the
after
Monday
Thanksgiving.
previous to Thanksgiving?
That would be
Monday
the Monday
after.
after.
Okay,
It'll
yeah,
be-
so it's not next
So the
week.
29th.
Yeah, 29th.
It'd be a while away.
Okay.
All right.
But yep,
Well, you give me so much shit about not booking enough guests.
this
so-
is true. This is true. Yeah. So way to get.
Well, he
my
does it
mom.
with gusto.
Yeah.
Yeah. The real question is, which Batmom shirt will she be wearing? That's
Oh,
the
which one will
question.
I wear?
You guys should
Oh,
really.
I don't know.
If you guys want to schedule ICS for the same day, you can double book. Bring her in here and just do a marathon. So she could switch shirts mid costume change between.
I'm betting she'll wear the one that says Batmom.
No, she loves it because it says Jim's Batmom.
Yeah.
She likes ours in a sense that she feels that she's supposed to, but she likes the one that literally just says Jim's Batmom.
Oh, yeah.
Or actually, it just says Jim's mom.
Yeah, ours
Picture
is
of a bat.
on the nose.
Oh, it does.
The
Yeah.
ICS one is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
on the
yeah.
nose.
Yeah, no, I remember when she got it. I was like, why would you get that? She's like, it literally just says Jim's mom. Who
Yeah.
else is buying this shirt?
Why wouldn't I get this shirt?
I am the only person that could wear it. So, yeah. So stay tuned. And my mother will be in a future episode of the show. So
All
it'll be
right.
fun. But we got some great questions coming up in this Thanksgiving episode. And hopefully, if you are trying to hide from your families right about now and just kind of taking a break from folks, we're in your ear holes and giving you a little bit of therapy on the side to get you through the day.
And if you have questions for Jim's Bat Mom,
send those in.
Send those in quick.
Yeah.
Send them in quick.
PodTherapyGuys@gmail.com. PodTherapyGuys@gmail.com. You could probably get those in time if you're hearing this on Thanksgiving. So that'll.
I feel like Jim might not. His microphone not. It might not be on that
It'd
episode.
be weird if it encountered a tragic error. That would be such a shame. So whatever. So here's some therapy on Thanksgiving for everybody. First question about anxiety and depression as a support person. Hi guys, love the pod. Been listening since your appearance on Ice Cream Social. I would like to remain anonymous, but my pronouns are he and him.
Great.
I'm wondering if you could share the books, workbooks, and resources that you recommend, that you've recommended before on the pod. I am particularly interested in anxiety and depression resources. I'm a support person. My fiance has severe anxiety and depression, and I'm trying very hard to be supportive. I think I'm a caretaker type of person, but I feel that trait is making it worse. Whenever I try to suggest to do things that will expand the comfort zone, i.e. spend time with my family or just go on an outing, I really enjoy playing pool and snooker, it usually ends up in an argument. I find it's just easier to not do those things instead of getting into an argument. She is in therapy, but COVID has made it so that she can't see her therapist. It's incredibly hard because over the past 2 years, I've seen her comfort zone shrink and shrink to the point that she doesn't leave the house. She has even made the comment that she feels like she has agoraphobia. I mentioned in the past that I feel that I would benefit from therapy because she told me, quote, "You don't have anxiety, why do you need it?" I want to say that I'm incredibly stressed out because of her issues. She doesn't work or help with any chores, but I bite my tongue to avoid her feeling worse. I feel like I'm always putting her needs before mine. I don't know what to do, and I'm feeling incredibly lost. Any help would be appreciated. Love the pod. All the best, Anonymous.
Good question.
One. Yeah, really good question. I think that's really relatable. When you have a family member who's going through any kind of health, challenge, whether that's a big, physical health thing or a mental health thing, and you kind of become their sidekick, their supporter, their coach, it affects your life. And we don't talk enough about that. We just expect everybody to suffer silently, not have an opinion. If you acknowledge your pain or your struggle, you're selfish and you're not being compassionate, and that's not fair.
I think any partner is willing to, stop what they're doing to provide assistance and support to their partner.
Right.
And I think a lot of us do it with the idea that they're going through a tough time right now, so I'm going to support them. And then at some point things will even out, and then they'll support me at some time, and it's kind of that reciprocal relationship.
Right.
But this happens every once in a while where you get kind of stuck and you are a permanent support system for somebody.
Right.
And if you aren't taking care of yourself, then your support, what you can offer that other person, is pretty limited.
Well, and then you become sort of umbilicaled to them, right? Because in the writer's case, the writer's saying, hey, I used to do a lot of self-care things. I used to get out and shoot some pool, and I used to enjoy getting out of here. But my spouse has increasingly become sequestered, all the way up to that magic phrase, which we'll unpack, agoraphobia. Now I'm beholden to stay in their orbit and stay close to them because they suffer when I'm not here. That's a big amount of pressure on me.
It's hard to stay in that situation without creating resentment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So, and then now we're talking about issues with the relationship itself.
Right. And I think it gets tricky because sometimes the resentment comes out, sometimes the bitterness comes out, and then the person, the wife in this case, might say, well, I don't feel like you're acknowledging me, or I don't think you're taking me seriously, and that gets really tricky. And then, when you're the spouse and you're like, listen, maybe I need to go see a therapist, I'm struggling. And then, that kind of bitterness claps back, and it's like, well, why do you need to? I'm the one going through this stuff. I can't even get to my therapist. You're going to go see one, which of course we don't love to hear. We don't think that's probably the healthiest view. If anything, your caretaker, the person who's there for you and supporting you, my goodness, they can't pour from an empty cup. We want them to be going through their own personal work and getting that support and that coaching on the side because they're going through a unique challenge that, frankly, the wife knows nothing about. The wife has not been in that position of being the supporter of somebody going through this. That is a unique lane to drive in.
We have Al-Anon, for substance
Right.
abuse, or, people who deal with people who are going through substance abuse.
Yes.
Is there something similar to Al-Anon for
Great
just
question.
life?
There is, yes. NAMI, which you guys have heard us talk about on the show, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, hosts all sorts of support groups and encounter groups. Yes, there are groups for the person suffering, which I think are incredible resources. And you're absolutely right. There are groups for family and friends who just come together separately
Great.
to coach and encourage each other through the unique experience of being the loved one.
So you can look up NAMI, and that'll have information for things in your area?
Yep, you'll click on the
I'm
support
on the
groups.
I'm on the website right now. Yeah, support and education, and then they've got a
zip
NAMI
code
family
finder.
support group. Yeah,
Yep, you just type in your
find
zip
the
code and it'll
NAMI
find you.
family support group nearest you, and click on that. And yeah,
So let's
So that might be a
unpack
nice
some of
resource
that.
to,
Oh,
to have a
absolutely.
look at there.
Absolutely. I'm
Definitely.
glad you brought that up.
Even with and combine that with your own therapy. I mean, that might be a really nice resource there.
So I'm going to start my comments there. I mean, so first off, you did ask for a very specific thing. Can we toss some resources up? So just so you know, Ryder, where we have the freedom to upload resources is really our Patreon. And I know that sounds like a money grab. Our Patreon's $1, and I'm pretty sure Patreon takes most of that. So we pretty much set it at the lowest number we could set it for people to still get into it. But jump into
It does, by the way. At $1 a month, you're
it's-
giving money to Patreon.
yeah, that you're only paying for Patreon. So
Yeah.
that just hosts Patreon so that we can store stuff up there.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So if you're willing to part with $1, come down to patreon.com/therapy, put $1 in the thing, just open up the Patreon to yourself. You'll get access to actually a lot of resources. I've done a lot of deep dives on Instagram Live that I also co-produce over at Patreon. I have been developing a long form course on anxiety work, because this is one of the areas that I feel I'm the most professionally competent in, because I've had to figure it out for myself. I have a lot of goodies, and so I love putting those things together in a way that could help people. But what I'll do for you, Ryder, is on this episode, in the Patreon, I will upload some really big resources. I will upload one of my favorite toolkits, which is the Anxiety Workbook by the great Dr. Aaron Beck, co-authored by Dr. Beck, which has been through numerous revisions over time. And I have kind of a workshop copy that you can access and get some great resources from. That's a great toolkit that I love. I think it's very accessible. I think it's very straightforward. Dr. Aaron Beck is the originator of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the gold standard for how we treat anxiety. And his methods are very clearly laid out in that workbook. It is designed to put pencil on paper and then to become kind of pocket-sized resources that the person puts into their life when they're going through those encounters with their anxiousness. So that would be a huge resource. I will try my best to make sure I can get that up there. It's pretty bulky. I don't know what the size limit is, but I'll try my best to get it up there. And if I can't, I will at least link it so that way you can go get it. It's absolutely a fair purchase. That's worth it at Amazon. I think that's really useful. There's a lot of depression resources too. CBT is used for depression, and I think it's a really useful resource. But depression, I think, is a little bit different, because to me, depression often kind of blends together some of the cognitive distortions, the thinking errors that are contributing to our suffering, along with what is often biochemical conditions. And so oftentimes people need to have a good prescriber in their life to be a part of that too. There are some resources. I will link them again at patreon.com/therapy in this episode's show notes. And you know what, Ryder? Screw all that. Go into the episode description of this podcast, wherever you're listening. Go into click this podcast link for this episode. An episode description opens up. We always put some links in there. I'll remember to put links to all the resources in there. I can't load things into that, but I can sure as hell link you to some resources. So I will definitely point you in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely encourage you to look at getting your own therapist as well. It would be nice. It kind of bothers me a little bit that I guess the comment that was made about, like, well, why do you need therapy?
Yeah.
Which I guess I kind of understand that. I mean, from her perspective, because she's probably dealing with a lot, and she looks at you and thinks, well, you're not dealing with everything I'm dealing with. Why do you need therapy?
Right.
But and you are dealing with different things, but that still doesn't, mean that you aren't dealing with something important. You're dealing with something very important.
Yes.
She
and I
could also
think-
be a little worried and some feelings of guilt there as well.
Sure,
Might be.
That
sure.
she feels like she's pushing you out of your comfort area,
Right.
Yeah.
and
I
you
mean,
need help now.
If she was on board, I mean, if you were comfortable having that conversation and just saying like, look, I want to be supportive of you, and this is a lot for me to manage, and I need to take care of myself. I need to make sure I'm doing well. And she's on board with that. You know, I don't know what your thoughts on this are, Jim, but like if you were her therapist and she came to you and like, hey, can we have a session with my husband present? Because he's got a lot of questions that he, wants to be supportive, and maybe the three of you can have that discussion about how.
Oh, I'd be thrilled.
How he
Yeah.
can be supportive and be a part of her
I love it.
therapy.
Oh, I do that all
You
the
know,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, and usually that becomes the bridge for the spouse, the writer in this case, to get that help.
Mhm.
Because usually the sufferer, the person with the anxiety and the agoraphobia and the depression will bring husband to me, and then I'll say, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to learn from you about my patient, things that you observe that are getting better, that are getting worse, how I can be helpful. If you have questions, and they always do,
Yeah.
they always say, man, what should I be doing? How can
Yeah.
I be helpful? Should I try to talk them down and reassure them when they're feeling these ways? Is that being condescending? Should I just listen to them? How long should I allow them to suffer before I intervene? Should I
23
not go
minutes.
places? Right, yeah, exactly 23 minutes and a half.
22. No one would go
No,
22.
it's crazy. That's malpractice.
I'm new age, guys.
Yeah, oh, that's
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
yeah.
he does believe in that resiliency. Give people that extra boost. But that's the questions people will ask is, should I just be leaving? Should I just be going off by myself? And is there manifestation of anxiousness of me leaving? Is that not healthy for either of us? Should I resist that and give them the opportunity to experience some time alone and to encounter their anxiety? So there's all these questions, right?
Right.
Which again, they're very nuanced, and usually the therapist treating the wife in this case is qualified to give you that feedback in a customized way.
Yeah, I
And
think
we
that-
always want customized feedback.
That's a good place to start.
I love that place. And of course, the support groups I think are huge. Nick and I are in agreement. If there's any possibility for you to get your own support, whether that's just from an online support group through NAMI or whether that's actually through checking in with your own professional,
Yeah,
that's huge.
Even if it's not a professional, even if you
Yes.
got friends,
Just confiding in buddies.
spend some time with some friends. Get out of the house every once in a while if you can, and just be social.
It's a requirement.
Yeah.
But this is one of the things that I think is really hard because when you're the caregiver spouse, you feel like you don't have that voice
Yeah.
to talk about your needs. And anytime you do, it feels very strange coming out of your head and it feels very selfish.
Well, we've had people write into the show before with people who have like serious illnesses,
right.
physical
Oh, yes,
illnesses.
yes, we
yeah,
have,
and they're like, well, I feel bad complaining about where I'm at because
Right.
they're really suffering, but it's not comparison. You're not saying that because I'm suffering, they're suffering any less,
Right.
or my suffering is worse than yours, or vice versa. It's not a
Yeah.
competition.
It's not.
It's just acknowledging what's there.
Well, you
acknowledging
have
what's
to
present.
see it as an ecosystem, writer. In one of the things that there's a specific discipline of therapy called marriage and family therapy, and that discipline sees things in what we call systems theory. And what that approach is about is not seeing you or your spouse as individuals in this case, but seeing you as an ecosystem and saying, hey, this ecosystem needs to be fueled from somewhere. And right now, the caregiver is the back upon which much is happening, whether the sufferer realizes that or not. We got to put gas in that tank. But what happens is the caregiver suffers in silence, doesn't say anything because they don't want to subtract and they don't want to provoke and they just want peace. And they're already dealing with so many fires, they don't want to contribute to it with one more selfish request. But ironically, that's what's healthy for both of you.
Yeah.
That's a gift to the relationship to go out and take some care of yourself. Yes, to laugh. Yes, to do something pointless, like shooting a couple of pool balls into the holes of the table. Yeah, getting a beer with your buddies or getting a coffee or taking a walk or seeing a movie. That's not selfish. That's replenishing. We're human beings. This is how we nourish mental health, is sometimes with lazy, lackadaisical nothingness that we just do. It's reading a book. It's listening to a song. It's taking a drive. It's taking a walk. It's doing a lot of nothing. But guys, this is the stuff that actually does refuel the tank. And so it's a necessity for your mental health. As a caregiver, I need you to get in touch with that. That needs to be something you're doing. Absolutely justified, writer. And hey, we love you for being a mental health warrior, being out there for your spouse, believing in her, coaching her, being there for her. We know it's not easy. And we don't expect you to be qualified to do it, okay? And this is something I tell people all the time. I say, listen, I'm supposed to be the therapist. You're not. It's too much. I had to do this for a long time to prepare for this, and your wife can't hurt me, right? Like, I can't be affected by her on a personal level. You are. You're too close to it to be the one treating her. So it's tricky because you also have to have a boundary there. But that's something that, again, her therapist might be able to coach you on or your own.
Yep.
Get a professional voice in there too. And I will post resources in this episode link wherever you're listening. If you're on Patreon, great. If you're listening wherever, go into the episode description. This episode's a description, not the podcast description. And I will link everything that I can find that I want you to start off with, okay? Great question, man. And we're rooting for you. And happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. I hope that it's replenishing for you, and I hope you get some gas in the tank. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking about abusing alcohol, but not yet being an alcoholic. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Smitty Scoop, Jake Snyder, Carolyn Albert, and Kevin Chamberlain. Would you like to sponsor the show? Become a therapy producer at patreon.com/therapy. This week's trivia theme in honor of our therapy producers is Thanksgiving. Which is considered the first ever Thanksgiving Day football game? Is it A, the Chicago Cardinals versus the Green Bay Packers in 1934? B, the Canton Bulldogs versus the New York Giants in 1924? C, the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions in 1952? D, Yale versus Princeton in 1876? Or E, the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Houston Texans in 1772?
Yeah.
Would you like to join the therapy producers that make the show possible? Go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up.
So my only knowledge on this topic is that whoever started it, eventually the Cowboys agreed to make it their obligation with the condition that it would be always in Texas, so at least they could be on home field, and then other teams would rotate in and do their turn, because I guess before that, in the modern era of football, it was more random. But then, of course, it became a big game, like second only to the Super Bowl, or the championships, the NFC and AFC championships, became like a really big must-watch television event. Now it's like, oh, wow, that was a genius move by the Cowboys. So, but I didn't hear the Cowboys in any of those listings, which means it clearly showed up before then.
Well, the Lions still do their game on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's the second game. So, okay, I'm going to go with, what was C?
That was
C,
the Lions.
Chicago Bears versus the Lions in 1952.
I don't think the Lions were around then. What A was? It was Packers versus Cardinals.
No, A was the Chicago Cardinals versus the Packers in 1934.
Yeah, I'm taking A.
B, Canton Bulldogs versus the New York Giants in 1924. C, I just said. D, Yale versus Princeton in 1876. Yeah. And E, let's not forget E.
Yeah, Pilgrims versus the Houston Rockets.
Jaguars versus the Texans in 1772.
All right. I'm going
prior
with
to
A.
us declaring independence.
That's true. Yeah. Which is when Thanksgiving would have happened.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to guess C. I'm going to guess the Detroit game.
Okay.
I don't know, but I'm guessing C.
I think it's a better bet than most.
I mean, I know because Detroit does always play on Thanksgiving.
They do.
And
I just don't feel like they would have been the first.
It tickles my brain somewhere that they were the first game.
Okay.
You're both wrong.
Okay.
It was Yale versus Princeton in 1876.
See, that's the one that I don't want to count.
Yeah, I don't
because
want
that was not that was not professional sports.
Yeah.
True.
Shame on you.
But that was the one that kind of started the whole Thanksgiving Day tradition.
I don't
people
think so,
started
Nick.
playing.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
I'm continuing the rest of this podcast under protest.
Yeah, you know what? This feels like a good Thanksgiving show.
That's going to be so different from every other episode.
Let's just fight it out now. This is perfect Thanksgiving. Yeah, this is exactly the right show. Why don't we all just disagree? Maybe just you're all
You
wrong.
know I never loved you.
Put down the wine glass, Nick. All right, so Yale versus Princeton. Fine, according to some people.
Allegedly.
Abusing alcohol. Hi, guys. I'm not an alcoholic, at least not in the way I understand the term, but I don't want alcohol to be a part of my life and can't seem to make that happen. To be clear, I am prone to abusing alcohol, which is essentially why I want to stop. There have been multiple periods over the past couple of years where I was certainly living the stereotypical alcoholic lifestyle, drunk on a daily basis, drinking in the morning, and while working, putting my personal safety at risk for alcohol. But I managed to put a halt to this behavior with the help of my family. Most recently, I've been setting goals for myself, 1 week without drinking, then 2, then a month. And that certainly helped me drink less, again, largely thanks to help from my family. That said, even with these goals in mind and knowing I'm being held accountable by others, I'm struggling to meet these goals. The longest I've made it was 3 weeks. As I write this, I've gotten drunk the past 2 nights. The first one, my family knows about. The second one, they do not, and I'm too embarrassed to tell them. I realize plenty of healthy people drink on a regular basis without it being a problem. I don't think that's an option for me. It's hard for me to drink without getting drunk. Honestly, I don't even see the point. I certainly view alcohol as self-medication. I deal with anxiety, and god damn it, getting drunk feels absolutely amazing. The sheer relief of it. I love the feeling. So much so that I've sometimes wondered if maintaining that feeling might not be worth skipping merrily down the road to alcoholism. Speaking of which, alcoholism has affected multiple members of my family, so I feel I need to be even more cautious than most. In short, I think it's best for me to abstain from alcohol completely. I just can't seem to do it. I get fixated on it each night, and I can fight that feeling off for a few days or weeks, but the craving just gets stronger and I break. As I said, accountability to my family helped, but I no longer think it's going to be enough. I don't know what to do. I guess I'm asking a few different things. Number 1, is there a diagnosis or a term specific to a state in which a person doesn't really check the boxes of alcoholism, but still feels they lack control over their alcohol use? And then number 2, what do you guys suggest I do to eliminate alcohol from my life? Thanks, guys, for all the help you provide to so many of us. Anonymous, pronouns are she and her.
Thank you for that.
Great question. And on Thanksgiving, a perfect question because
exactly.
this is in somebody's living room right now. The thought they are having is, this person is guzzling away and we are hours away from cutting that turkey and I'm concerned and here we go.
Or it's
them.
Oh shit, this is happening.
Yes.
It's time for me to get a drink.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is stressful.
Mom is here.
Yep,
My
I'm
mother-in-law
pouring
is
them out.
here. Whatever it is.
Yep.
There's some kind of trigger here,
Yep.
and I need a drink.
Every family has this somewhere in it.
So let's dive into the diagnostic criteria first. So, because the question really is like, okay, so is there a term or a diagnosis for somebody that doesn't quite check all the boxes for alcoholism?
And a good question is, what are the boxes?
Right. Well, and this is a great question, probably even a better question than you realize, because I think it really represents a disconnect between where we are as a profession versus what the average person knows and understands.
Right.
Because there is no diagnostic term of alcoholism.
Right.
That doesn't really exist. And so back in the day, we used to have alcohol abuse as a diagnosis, and we had alcohol dependence as a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And then they changed that when they came out with DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5th edition. And the change that they made was brilliant. I love it. And it makes so much more sense as opposed to having an abuse diagnosis versus a dependence diagnosis. It's now looked on as like a continuum. So, the
A
number
continuum as in like a spectrum?
yeah,
type?
spectrum.
Okay,
So it's more like a spectrum disorder, like with autism.
Okay.
Right, is kind of a
Can
spectrum
be
disorder.
severe, can be
Right.
mild.
Exactly. So now what we have is we have a substance use disorder, mild, moderate, or severe,
Yes.
based off of how many of the 11 criteria you meet. Okay. So this is great because it explains kind of where you're at. So you don't have to have all 11 criteria. You may only meet 3 of the criteria, and that doesn't mean that your issues aren't significant, that you don't need help with it. It just better explains where you're at, and
So
that's it.
Everybody get out a piece of paper and a pencil, and we're going to start tally marking the 11 boxes. Put the show on
There
speaker
we
for
go.
the whole family, and here we go.
So the first criteria 1, is the substance being taken in larger amounts over a longer period of time than was intended. Okay. So essentially what this means, all right, so we got one check box already from
Jim raised the finger.
So
Not the one you're thinking.
to put this in layman's terms, what this essentially means is, do you set limits that you can't stick to? So like, I'm going to go to the bar, I'm just going to have 2 drinks, that's it. And then you end up getting drunk. Or
It's
it could
bigger
even
and
be
bigger.
setting limits on your level of functioning. Like, I'm just going to get a little buzz and that's it.
Is
And
it
then you
also
get drunk.
tolerance? Is
No.
that what that? No, this
No.
box is not about tolerance. It's about the
Correct. No.
inability to restrict the number or the
Yes.
amount.
Yes.
Would
So
this qualify what the writer said about setting a goal of a month without drinking and not being able to meet that goal?
yes.
The
Okay.
amount was 0 and we didn't meet that amount. Or I'm only going to have a drink a week or I'm
actually-
only drinking the weekend.
Or would that
Actually,
qualify as something else?
It would qualify as something else.
Okay.
Okay.
This is
Quantity.
really kind of looking at trying to set limits and not being able to stick to those
Great.
limits.
Got it.
Okay.
I'm gonna have
and
2
then
drinks
also-
tonight. I had 6.
Lacking the
Yeah.
self-control to do that. to
Also,
stick it.
like that you are drinking more over a longer period of time.
It is increasing over time.
Yes, but it's not necessarily tolerance. That's a little bit different.
Okay.
So we'll get to that.
Okay.
The second criteria is more what Jacob was talking about. So a persistent desire or unsuccessful efforts to cut down or quit.
Yes.
Okay. So this is saying, I have tried to quit 3 times before in the past, but I haven't been able to.
Right.
I've only been able to go 2 weeks, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's failed attempts to quit. So essentially what you're demonstrating here is you're demonstrating a loss of control.
Right. I've promised myself. I've
Right.
promised God. I've promised mom. I've promised my spouse. I've really meant it. And then time happens and then I go right back and I find myself not being able to stick to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is understandable.
Sure. Very
I mean,
human.
like,
very relatable.
You make those promises to whoever you're making those promises to. In that moment, you feel terrible, and you say, "I'm going to change this." That there's been whatever consequence from this action. I hate this consequence. I don't want it to keep. I don't want it to keep happening. I'm going to change this pattern of behavior. 3 days later,
Right.
that pattern of behavior, you don't remember it.
So far,
It doesn't seem as bad.
the first 2 criteria, I think a lot of listeners are thinking, okay, that's pretty relatable.
Mhm.
Sure. How many of us have had a puking Saturday night where we've promised I'm never drinking again on Sunday morning? And then, a week or 2 later, we're back out on the boat and we're having a few and we're thinking, what's wrong with me? Some of this is quite relatable. Of course, it also has to do with perpetuity. Is this happening more and more? And also severity, but we're getting to some of that.
Criteria 3, you're looking at, so it's a great deal of time spent in activities necessary to obtain the substance, use the substance, or recovering from its effects.
Right.
So what we're talking about here is preoccupation. So how much of your time is spent around the substance? So when you get with people who have an alcohol use disorder, one of the things that you're going to see is they're either spending a lot of time drinking, or they're spending a lot of time getting ready to drink,
Yeah.
which is getting the alcohol, and they're spending a lot of time recovering from the effects of alcohol.
And they have to weave it into
And they
everything.
and it starts to overlap.
Yeah.
So I spent, whatever amount of time I needed to go to the store to buy the alcohol. I spent all day drinking, and then I slept it off, and then now I'm recovering from its effects. And as soon as I'm done recovering from the effects, or even before, I've started the next day's drinking.
And
right?
and their world and their agenda often revolve around making sure the alcohol can be a feature in the activity.
Yeah.
Hey man, we're all going to go out to the boat. Oh great, I'll bring a cooler full of booze. Why don't we all meet at the bar as our meetup spot? Why don't we meet there and we'll launch out of the bar? Oh well, we were thinking of going to this restaurant. And then they mentally will look up that restaurant and go, no, that one doesn't have any. I was thinking this one instead. Or, hey, we're all going to the baseball game. Great. Can we tailgate beforehand? Where are we going to do the pregame?
When you're trying to make decisions based off
Always
of whether or
has
not
to
there'll be
budget the
alcohol.
time.
It's like Jim tailgating before his son's Boy Scout meetings.
Right.
Most people would say that's not appropriate.
Maybe you don't need to do this. But
Yeah.
I'm like, it's Havasu, guys. I don't know. I don't know what's appropriate in Arizona.
Yeah, Boy Scouts.
Yeah, you guys doing great.
Drinking merit badge.
What kind of doctor's your dad again?
All right. Well, which one?
We're
was
on
that?
number
Oh, that was
4.
3. So 4,
That sounds like the writer might not check that box.
maybe not.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but I'll bet you they relate to it. And that's the thing
Oh, I
about
bet
people
so.
with that third box. When you ask them, hey, do you find yourself preoccupied with making this a part of your life? Are you always budgeting for it, scheduling for it, or thinking how to weave it into your world? A lot of times they'll kind of smile and go, yeah, I am. And nobody really knows that I do that, but I'm always thinking about when I'm going to be drinking and how we're going to get that done.
Yeah. So if I'm not doing it, I'm thinking about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I'm not doing it, recovering from it, I'm thinking about it or planning it.
It's always part of me.
4 is cravings or a strong desire or urge to use the substance. So as with anything, if you want to know if it's a dependency, what the first thing you do is you remove it and see how you react to it.
Sure.
Right. So the cravings now become kind of that psychological and then also physiological response that your body needs it if it's not there.
Right.
5, reoccurrent substance use resulting in failure to fulfill major role obligations at work, school, or home.
So these are those bad consequences?
Yes. So these are the negative consequences. So you are, maybe you're missing a lot of work.
You're calling in
sick.
You're
Sounded like they
driving in
have
late.
checked this box a couple of times.
Yeah.
You might
sounds like
be
it.
driving through the roads when your brakes are out.
Yep.
Doing things that are clearly and
That's actually
conspicuously.
criteria 8. But
Oh,
we'll get
okay.
to
We're
that.
not there yet. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. We're skipping ahead.
Yeah. So when you start cutting things out, like you're not able to fulfill obligations in your
Right.
life, that's criteria 5. Criteria 6 is continued substance use despite having persistent or reoccurrent social or interpersonal problems caused or exacerbated by the effects of the
So
substance.
number 6 is the smoking gun of bad things are happening because you are drinking. You keep drinking anyway. There are negative consequences. You are still doing it, which is piggybacking off of, I think, number 5,
Yeah.
which is kind of also speaking in another direction of you're missing your obligations, which, by the way, is Thanksgiving. If you're getting, burned up in the middle of Thanksgiving and like you're passed out in another room while the rest of your family's eating dinner, you might think, oh, it's no big deal. They're family. They get it. No, this qualifies on the number 5 point, I believe, Nick, that criteria.
Also, them understanding it and being forgiving about
doesn't
it
mean it didn't happen.
doesn't change
Exactly.
anything.
That's right.
Right.
You're missing those obligations.
Yeah.
And then 6 is negative consequences because of the drinking, and you keep drinking anyway.
For instance, I had a guy that works for me just last week or the week before. He missed a day of work because he had been out partying. He had a gig at a big festival, and he had been drinking a lot at this festival, and then called out of work the next day because of it.
Okay.
And was just too hungover to come into work. It happens. It doesn't happen to this guy all the time.
Sure.
It's never happened to him before, but it happens.
Right.
And I had to kind of talk to him a little bit because I was the one who had to cover for him. I had to work when I didn't need to work and everything, or wasn't supposed to work and do all this stuff to cover for this guy. And he's a younger guy. And so I kind of took the mentor spot and said, if you're going to go out and party, if you're going to go out and drink, you still got to come in.
Yeah.
You feel like shit. That's the price you pay.
Yeah.
This is a one-time thing.
Mhm.
If he did this on the regular,
Sure. It'd be a problem.
I would be concerned for him.
Yeah.
Well, and this is, where the key word here is recurrent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So it's continuing to happen. And then when you get 6, another example of criteria 6 would be if you have noticed that this is affecting your relationships with people.
Yes.
So this is, it's causing a division, with my spouse, but I'm continuing to do it anyway.
We're checking that box for
and
the
to
writer.
be clear
Right.
for all the listeners, because I know I got some folks listening to that, and what I'm about to say is only going to piss them off, but hey, it's true. It doesn't matter whether they're right. So a lot of people go, oh, yeah, well, it's causing problems, but that's because my wife's a bitch. Or it's causing problems. That's because my parents are religious and they don't do this.
Those
it
things are
doesn't
unrelated.
quite matter. Yeah,
Right.
like it doesn't matter.
Your wife is a bitch.
The presence of this has taken up so much real estate and become so conspicuous as part of your identity and part of your actions, it now displaces your relationships, whether they have good reasons or whether you relate to them or not. The alcohol has become an issue.
Yep.
And that's why we count it as one of the 11 criteria.
Yep.
It's not the do or die, but it's in there.
Right.
None of these are do or die so far.
Right. It's really the combination of all of them.
That's how we
pretty
get the
much.
spectrum.
Criteria 7.
You're 1/11 of an alcoholic.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Criteria 7. Important social, occupational, or recreational activities are given up or reduced
That's
because of
right.
the substance.
That's right.
Okay.
So used to be very active in some sort of activity, a hobby, things that you just kind of gave up because, well, I can't drink and do this.
Right.
So I'm going to choose to drink.
I
Yeah.
can't make it out for softball practice at 9 a.m.
Right. Not
on
gonna do
Saturday
it.
morning. because Friday night, that's a drinking night for me.
Yep.
Yep.
So guess I'm not playing softball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to come over to the bridal shower we're going to do or this baby shower? Oh, yeah, you guys. So what's it going to be like? It's dry. We're just doing, I can't make that.
Or what time is it?
Yeah, what time is that? That's
Yeah.
right. That's the key question. What's going on? When's it going to be? Again, that preoccupation with getting alcohol into their story. When they can't, now they're opting out.
So this is one we see quite often. I'll ask people if I'm doing an assessment, so what are your hobbies? What do you enjoy doing? And they'll list a few things off. And then the next question I ask is, when did you last do any of those?
Yeah.
And it's like, 1998, I think.
You're
Right.
blowing off things with friends.
Right.
Friends, you make plans with them and then you get trashed and then you can't do it anymore.
Yep.
That's part of it too.
Then we got 8, which is reoccurrent substance use in situations which are physically hazardous.
Right.
So this would be a DUI. Actually, it's reoccurrent, so multiple. More than one DUI. It could also be
Drinking at work.
Drinking at work. It also doesn't have to be a DUI.
I was about to
'cause that
say.
implies that you got caught.
Yes.
It could
That's
just
exactly
be,
what I was about to say.
Driving under the influence.
Driving while intoxicated,
Yeah.
whether you get caught or not, that
Yes.
being recurring,
Or
that can be a sign.
getting drunk and doing risky behavior. It doesn't always
Yes.
have to be I operated a motor vehicle. Too often people think, what, I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink and drive. And it's like,
Good for
wait.
you.
Therapists hear that and go, what? Like that did very little to do with the entire conversation of what we think
I'm
of.
glad you don't drink and drive.
Right, yay, but we're also thinking of a lot of other things. If you drink and then you find yourself getting in fights, stealing things, doing dangerous things, risky sexual behaviors, all the things
Murdering
that go
people.
along. Yeah, that could be bad too, Chappaquiddick. Whatever's going on, that could be bad signals that, hey, the alcohol causes you to be a different person, and that's not okay.
And then criteria 9, substance use continued despite knowledge of having persistent or reoccurrent physical or psychological problems that are likely to have been caused or exacerbated by the substance. So this would be, as an example, I know that I'm very depressed and alcohol makes my depression worse, but I continue to do it.
And anxiety. Alcohol also induces anxiety, oftentimes during the withdrawal phase. And we're anesthetizing it in the meantime, knowing that it makes my relationships more isolated, knowing that it's hurting my health. When your doctor comes to you and says, hey, listen, I didn't like the lab results on this last one. I need you to do something for me. And then you know that this is the situation, but you keep doing it. That's what we're talking about. Physical or mental health is being harmed, and you're continuing anyway.
Criteria 10 is tolerance. So
There it is.
tolerance is going to be defined by one of two things. Either the need to increase the amount of substance to achieve the desired effect,
Right.
or a diminished effect with the continued use of the same amount of substance.
Right.
So basically, it just means that that's whatever that amount is, it's not doing what it used to do anymore.
Right.
So I used to have to drink, I used to get drunk at 4 beers. Now it takes 8,
Sure.
or if I drink 5 beers, I don't feel anything anymore.
Now,
right?
a lot
Either
of
one
people
those.
take issue with this because they go, well, F you guys, that's just physiology, right? Like, of course that's happening.
No, I think the way that this is phrased though is a really good phrasing of this.
Yes.
Because what you're talking about and what a lot of people say is, well, I don't drink as much as my friend
Exactly.
that I go out and drink with.
Yes.
And so therefore my
I'm not an
tolerance isn't
alcoholic.
bad, like whatever. No. We're not talking about anybody else.
Yes.
We're talking about you.
Yes.
So if you drink 3 beers and the effect is X,
Yes.
and then a month later you drink 3 beers and the effect is no longer X,
Yes.
now you have changed.
Right. If it's 1/2 X, your tolerance is growing. And then you're like, well, now I like to do a shot or two and then have the beers. And again, we're not immediately looking at that going, oh, that's an alcoholic, right? Nick and I do not go to the bar after the studio and sit there and spot who's drinking how much quantities and mentally doing the math in our head to spot, who's got the problem. That's not how this works.
No, we're too busy babysitting Jacob.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Stopping all the bar fights he's getting into. That's we don't have time
Stopping
for
'em.
that.
Like you can stop all of them.
We usually just tempt him with pretzels. We're like, hey, Jacob, what's this? There's cheese. You don't need to hit that guy again. But no, we're not.
I'm gonna, but I don't need to.
We're not looking for quantity necessarily, but This is a criteria, even though that's happening. Now, again, most folks might say, well, hold up. You know, when I first started drinking at 21, it was a very small number. Now I can have a couple of glasses of my liquor and I hold it well. It's not a problem. That is not, again, inherently this huge blinking red light to us. We take it in confluence with other factors. It certainly indicates your physiology is adapting to this and that it does take quite a bit more. Take that for what it is.
Part of your physiology. That's the other thing too that confuses a lot of people with tolerance is people associate their tolerance with only the physical piece. So what they can physically do while they've been drinking. This is why so many people get DUIs, is because they base it on function. And like, oh well, my functioning is improved. Like I can actually put the key in the ignition without having to focus on it.
But that's not the definition of drunk.
There's two different levels of tolerance. There's two things that you're measuring. One stays fixed, which is your control, your reflexes, your reaction time, all that. That tolerance never moves.
Okay.
Then you have another tolerance, which is like your physical tolerance. Like at what point you start to stumble, right?
Right.
That goes up. So people think, well, I haven't reached this threshold yet, so I'm okay, but you've more than passed the other one.
Right.
And that's where people get into DUIs, is because they feel like they're okay, so they must be fine. So
they feel like they're still eloquent and they can sing a song, but
a dancer friend of mine used to say that if I can still do a triple turn, I'm sober enough to drive. And that was not correct.
That is not
because
accurate.
she can do a triple turn after having, I don't know how many drinks.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that the processing, that the brain power that's being used to process, quick decisions, all the things. It's like, oh shit, there's a deer in the road, slam on the brakes.
Right. Yeah. The response time's already hit its inhibitions.
The person, the drunkest I have ever, the highest blood alcohol I have ever recorded personally.
Okay.
Came from a guy that if I didn't smell it on him, I would have had no idea that he had been drinking.
Yeah.
He was a pro. At drinking.
Oh yeah.
It was an outpatient program back in Iowa. The receptionist called me. She said, "Hey, so and so's here for his appointment. He smells like alcohol."
Yep.
So I'm like, "All right, I'll be up in a second." So I started walking up there. I could smell him before I could see him.
Mm-hmm.
And I get up there. I'm like, "Hey man, how you doing?" It's like, "Great. Come on back to my office."
Yep.
Stands up fine. Walks with me. We talk the whole way.
Yep.
Absolutely coherent.
Yep.
Sit down, do a breathalyzer. Guess what he blew?
Oh Lord. Can I'll want me to
Take a
throw
guess.
a number?
Let's see, a 0.08 is
the legal
Nevada legal limit. And that number changes a little bit across the country, but it's basically 0.08.
Yeah.
And that's kind of general.
I mean, 1? Was he at a 1?
No, he was higher than a 1.
I mean 1.5.
You're thinking 0.1.
No. Point. Oh yeah. That's what I'm saying. 0.1.
Yeah. No, he was higher than 0.1.
Yeah.
I bet he was I'm going to say 0.23.
He was a 0.4.
Holy
insane.
shit.
0.4 is death.
Did you take him to the ER?
His mom was with him.
Oh Lord.
We had her take him.
Oh my God.
We used to
and here's the other thing. He drove to that appointment.
Oh my God.
Now here's the other thing you need. I personally would die if I hit 0.2.
Jeez, but right.
I
How long
could
does
not.
it take?
I could not survive.
Yeah, no, and you mean that physiologically.
No,
You're not saying, boy,
physiologically,
sure
I
I'm a
would die.
lightweight, guys. You're
No,
saying, no. My anatomy will cease to function at
Yes.
0.2. His continued at 0.4, which shows you how much training it had to have to get up
That's
to that limit.
when I say he was a pro. I mean he had 10,000 plus hours.
Right. He had put in the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
In college, we played a game that is probably not advisable for anyone to play, including us. And that was, we got a breathalyzer.
Oh, that.
And decided to see, we're college kids, we now have a breathalyzer. We're going to use it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And what we're going to do with it is see who can blow the highest.
Oh,
Yep.
Lord. Oh.
And the only night that I remember doing this, and we may have done it one or two other times, but I have a memory of one night, and one person just chugging like whiskey or some high octane liquor, just putting it back as fast as they could. This person was incredibly sick. That night. It wasn't the next day. Like they were incredibly sick that night, which was probably really good. that they got sick and vomited a lot of it up.
Yeah.
And I think they blew like a 0.27.
Oh, yikes.
But I mean, this was more than a bottle of whiskey over a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, that's no good. Not good.
No, that is a mess.
Criteria 11, final one, is
I'm
with...
really happy right now that I didn't win that game in college.
Oh, yeah.
No.
That's not a point of pride.
Yeah.
Criteria 11 is the withdrawal symptoms. So this is we're experiencing physiological consequences when you don't have the substance in your body. So this is either going to be you experience the symptoms when you don't have it, or you have to continue taking the substance in order to avoid the symptoms.
Right.
So.
And, I think that, friends, when we bring all that together and for the writer, so first, the writer's asking a very honest question that a lot of people struggle with. They say, well, I'm not an alcoholic because Bob at my work, boy, you want to see an alcoholic, you should see this person.
That's Bob.
There's always somebody else that has a lower bottom than you have, as we say in the rooms. You might have a higher basement, right? Your rock bottom, so to speak. But again, you can see how the criteria are all relative.
Well, and the rock bottom thing always gets me too, because that just means rock bottom so far.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. It always has a basement. You'll dig right through the caliche and you'll get down to hell.
I think the big thing, I guess, what I always tell people too, because I've had this question a lot, am I an alcoholic? Is this alcoholism? I don't think it is, but bottom line, it doesn't matter.
Right.
What it boils down to is you have identified yourself. It's a problem.
Yes.
You have tried to stop.
Yes.
You have been unsuccessful.
That's it.
At the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah.
You need to get some help.
And
you need to talk to somebody.
I think
about
I'll
this.
say this to you, writer, and to anybody out there. I get it, because whenever you are confronted with this challenge, usually you're confronted by the spectators in your life, family, friends, coworkers. And that's always hard, because very few people approach you with this very compassionate, even-toned, sit you down whenever you can really hear them, this very calm, gentle spirit. It's usually subtle, passive-aggressive, combative. They're frustrated. They don't want to drive you home again. They say mean things. They say you're a drunk. They curse under your breath, that kind of thing. And it's so combative and feels so weaponized that we start to recoil and get really defensive often. Now, writer says that family's been extremely supportive, but for many out there, they don't get that help and they don't confront the challenge because they always feel like they're defending themselves against it.
Yeah.
But the thing that they'll tell you in the rooms, when you sit down in Alcoholics Anonymous, they'll say, listen, friend, do you feel sometimes like your life has become unmanageable? Do you feel like you're going around doing the same story over and over again, wishing for a change of pace, wishing that you could be free of some of this stuff? Do you drink because you have to? And when you feel like you're drinking because you have to, because of the anxiety, because of the loneliness, because of the depression, because you can't sit still with your thoughts, because of your history, whatever it is, then you're not in control, which means your life isn't manageable. And that means it's time for something outside of yourself to be part of your story to get help. So the second question the writer asked is, how can I get help? What do you do? Well, of course, we're going to recommend you talk to a therapist.
Well, I think you need to, I guess a couple things. I would definitely get to a meeting,
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Go to an AA meeting. You're going to find a lot of people there that you're going to resonate with. They're going to share their story and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I can.
Right.
And you're going to relate to a lot of the stuff that they're talking about. But I would, in addition to that, not in place of, but in addition to that, I would find a treatment program in your area, schedule an appointment for an assessment.
Yeah.
Go in there, get an assessment. What they're going to do in the assessment is they're just going to do a biopsychosocial assessment. They're going to ask you a whole bunch of questions.
They're going to go over the
get
11
some information
criteria
from you. And then what they're going to do is they're going to make a recommendation as far as what level of care would be best for you. And when we do this, we always do our best to do the least restrictive environment possible.
Yeah, we don't just throw
so
you
we
in the
want to
tank.
find a level that you can, it's not going to interrupt your life. You can still do your things as much as possible. Now, there are times where sometimes we have to say like, all right, this is serious enough. Things are going to have to go on hold. we really need safety. We got to put you in a safe environment,
Yeah.
which will always be with, your consent.
Which of those higher levels,
yeah.
there's a continuum.
Yeah.
And at the higher levels, we got to do a little bit more for you to make sure you're surrounded by care. You're going to be healthy. Sometimes quitting alcohol or drugs can make you sick or put you in danger. But we usually do start on the lower end. And just scheduling any appointment with an outpatient therapist or a program, they will be qualified to sit you down, get to know you, put pieces together, and then make a recommendation.
And I'll tell you what, the thing that the best thing that you got going for you right now is internal motivation.
Yes.
The fact that you've identified this and you want to deal with it. As a substance abuse counselor myself, that makes my job a whole hell of a lot easier.
Yes.
Because instead of starting, at the very beginning, with I'm going to say the steps, but I don't mean the 12 steps, but
the steps
that you would take.
Exaggerating. Instead of starting at step 1, we're starting really at like step 4. Like I can jump, I can move through faster. Like I can get you at that point. So that's going to be very helpful for you. But definitely get yourself to a meeting, keep an open mind about it, schedule an assessment with a treatment provider.
That's key.
Those are the next steps.
And I want to talk about your mindset a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, I'm not an alcoholic, but I have some of these signs, I have some of these symptoms, etc. And so I have all of these things, and so because of that, I want to just say this. Because it sounds like you do want to make a change, and that's fine. It's good that you want to make a change, and that whatever change you want to make in life, great. So do me this favor, and that is just for a while, while you're doing the things that Jim and Nick were just saying, for a while, go ahead and just pretend that you're an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Just take that mindset, take the mindset of someone who is an alcoholic, and just say, I'm going to go through the steps as though I'm an alcoholic. And again, I don't mean the 12 steps. I just mean the steps that Jim and Nick were just talking about. I'm going to do this as though I were an alcoholic, and let's see how that works out for you. And again, I'm not saying that to be preachy at you. I'm not saying that for any reason other than you are saying to us, I want to make a change in my life here. So I'm saying, in an effort to try to make that change and facilitate that change that you want to make, go ahead and just do it as though you're an alcoholic. If you go to an AA meeting and you decide that you want to speak, go ahead and start with, my name is X and I'm an alcoholic. That's what an alcoholic would say, so go ahead and say it. Go ahead and just do it that way.
Yeah.
And just see where that leads you.
Yeah, that's great advice.
See how that works for you.
You need to focus on things you have in common, not the things you have different.
Yeah.
And a lot of times getting hung up on whether you actually select enough criteria to be in the group, you're asking the wrong questions.
Right.
The right question, when you go to AA, a lot of people think, do I belong here? Is it okay that I'm here?
Doesn't matter.
They always tell you the same thing. When you sit down, they'll read it to you. They have these little sheets that they read, and it's kind of scripted. That's how they open the little ceremony in the room. And they say, there's only one criteria to be in this room today. It's a desire to stop drinking. That's it.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how much time you have. It doesn't matter if you drink on the way here. Like, a desire to stop drinking is kind of what we're looking for. It's not about definitions. It doesn't matter.
And the neat thing is, don't worry about explaining to anyone that you're not an alcoholic. Don't even worry about it. Because the nice thing here is your therapist, other people in the AA meeting, someone that you run into at a facility, whatever you're doing, whatever your path leads you on here. It doesn't matter if they think you're an alcoholic or not.
Sure.
It doesn't matter at all. The other people in that meeting, the therapist, if they all think you're an alcoholic and you know that you're not, then you're probably not.
Right.
But go ahead and just take those steps as though you are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can't hurt you. That's
Exactly.
for damn sure.
Exactly.
And
Because what you're doing right now isn't working.
Right.
So let's
Yeah.
try something else.
There it is. That is the $1 million piece right there. The way I've tried to do it didn't work, so I had to become willing to try everything.
Yeah.
And that's the answer to your second question. Do Nick and I have a whole toolbox full of suggestions we could give you and thinking exercises and techniques and tricks? And yeah, but we know at this stage it's not appropriate to just get you all that. We know the first step's got to be you showing whoever's in your life, the guys and gals in the group, get into the treatment. You've got to be the one to walk into those doors, and then you'll be mentally ready for the things that work. But those things aren't worth a damn, friend, if you're not willing to step forward and say, all right, I'm all in for today. And it's just for today. You don't got to make a plan. You talked about the love song about alcohol and how powerful it is for you and how much it matters. I get it. And one of the things that stops a lot of people, Nick, from getting any help in the beginning is they say, well, I don't know if I can commit to this for 20 years. I don't know if I can commit to this 30 years. I don't know what I'm going to do at my nephew's bar mitzvah. I don't know what I'm going to do at Thanksgiving. I think I don't know. New Year's is coming up. Christmas coming up. I'll start it in February. And we always tell them, listen, you're thinking way too far in the future. Just today, it's Thanksgiving. Make it a dry Thanksgiving. Just start today. Just for today. What am I going to do on Friday? Don't worry about Friday. It's Thursday.
Yep.
Just being Thursday. That's it.
And you can do all kinds of little tricks too. So if you want to go out and you want to go out with people, at a bar or at an event or whatever that is, you might say, at this type of event, I would normally drink 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drinks. Today, I might have a drink. I might start with a beer or a mixed drink or what have you. And then I'm just going to switch over to something else. And that something else might just be you go up to the bartender and say, hey, give me a glass with cranberry juice and Sprite on ice.
Yeah.
It can still look like you have a cocktail in your hand. You don't have to deal with people coming up to you going, hey, buddy, why aren't you drinking?
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with any of that. And that's a nice little trick you can do.
Yeah. Or allergy meds. Are you having any drinks with us tonight? You want to do a round?
No, I'm on meds.
I can't, man. I'm on the allergy meds. I've been like crazy. And then everybody likes to go, oh my God, the allergies are crazy. Yeah. Oh, the pollen's everywhere this year. It's terrible. And yeah, it really is.
Yep.
And there you go. There's your out. So
No, I usually just go, no, I can't. I got COVID.
yeah, there you everybody's like, oh, you guys want to do a
currently
community
have
shot?
COVID-19.
Maybe you should go home.
Yeah, maybe you don't get to take communion with us tonight.
Yeah.
Well, friend, we are glad you wrote in about this. It gave us an opportunity to speak to something that's on a lot of people's minds and very opportune. We don't cherry pick these questions. They kind of come up on the queue as they come up. And this one rolled up today on a day that, hey, this topic matters to a lot of folks. And a lot of people start thinking about it a little bit more carefully around the holidays. I'm glad you asked.
I say this to everybody when they write in, but keep us updated. I would
Yes.
love
Yeah.
an update later on down the road. Let us know how you're doing, and that'd be great to hear that.
We're rooting for you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are talking about an unwell roommate. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsors are Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Carolyn Albert, and Kevin Chamberlain. If you too would like to become a Theraproducer, go to patreon.com/therapy. Our trivia theme is Thanksgiving. Second question is, the first oversized balloons in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade made their debut in 1927
Wow.
and featured several animals like elephants and tigers, as well as this famous character.
Oh, 26?
1927.
Around for a while. Not quite
Is it-
since 26.
Is it A, Felix the Cat, B, Snow White, C, Betty Boop, D, Santa Claus, or E, Leonardo da Vinci? If you'd like to join the Theraproducers and make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
All right, so it was Leonardo da Vinci,
Yes.
Betty Boop, Santa,
Leonardo da Vinci.
Felix
White.
the Cat, Snow
Girl
White.
power.
Yes.
There's some good competitive ones up there. I'm thinking Betty Boop, Felix the Cat, and Santa neck and neck. Santa, you feel that's evergreen. It's got to be. But then it's like, well, wait a minute. Did we have like the red Santa from Coke by then? Because I feel like they kind of trademarked that. Would we have had that? But then would you have needed that for a balloon? Maybe not. Father Christmas is pretty iconic. I'm going Felix the Cat. I'm snatch up Felix the Cat. That feels right. Also, the Macy's Day Parade blows. That whole thing is a waste of your life. Nobody
Felix
should
is where
watch
I
that.
was leaning. So there's
Right,
Felix,
Jim swept
there's
up,
Betty Boop.
dove
I,
in
mean, I
there.
can still pick Felix.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You could.
Yeah. Where's the fun in that?
There's Betty Boop, Felix, Santa. I'm going to pick Felix,
Leonardo da Vinci's quite elderly.
but
too.
I'm going to do it for this reason.
Okay.
I'm going to do it because it is
Jim
the
is right.
simplest design and the easiest to make a balloon out of.
Oh.
In 1927 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty logical.
Betty Boop might have been difficult. You got to really nail it on those curves. The cat, Just pretty
The
simple.
curves are the easy part.
Yeah.
Doing things like a
Or
beard.
hair. Yeah, or the beard. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going Felix as well.
Well, welcome aboard.
We're wrong or right together.
Let's do it.
It was Leonardo da Vinci.
Damn it!
No, I'm kidding. It was,
They went all in on that.
it was not. It was not. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe Betty Boop didn't become a thing until the 30s.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. All
It
right.
was Felix the Cat.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, because wasn't Betty Boop somehow a reflection of Marilyn Monroe? Wasn't that like
no,
part of the?
she
No.
was she was a 1920s
Pinup.
flapper
Okay, got it.
type. Yeah.
All right, so it was Felix the Cat?
It was Felix the
Felix.
Cat.
There you go.
All right, winner, turkey dinner. Yeah, yeah. Because
Not on a slider.
Thanksgiving. Yeah, oh, come on. We need to discuss this. Unwell roommate. Hi, sports fans. I have a complicated issue that I'm not sure how to handle. My roommate and I are really close. We've been living together for almost 2 years, and we really clicked. We're interested in almost all the same things, are almost the same age, and we're a big part of each other's support system. I would say we're pretty close to being sisters. Something that has been tough to deal with is knowing if we're too enmeshed or with each other or not. She really struggles with depression and recently went through a crisis where she was actively doing everything she could to not hurt herself or worse. We do make a lot of dark jokes a lot of the time, but I know she wasn't kidding around this time. She's been here before and knew what to do. She called her psychiatrist and her therapist. While I love her and want what's best for her, it's really hard to sit in the family room with her and see her hurting. It has impacted me mentally as well. She's very unhappy at her job and knows she has a problem with instant gratification, spending money on things she wants in the hopes that she'll feel some kind of happiness. And it's tough to not say anything when she's venting to me. I firmly believe that we are all in complete control of our lives and that she could get a new job, work on healthier habits, and save some money, and maybe be a little happier. But I also know how severe her depression is, and it's very difficult for her to do daily things like brush her teeth, let alone make big changes. It's also a challenge for me because I'm currently pursuing my master's in social work in the hopes of getting my licensed clinical social work therapy license. I don't ever want her to think that I'm psychoanalyzing her or overstepping any boundaries. I love her. She's my best friend, but I'm really exhausted. My boyfriend is nervous that I'm going to fall back into my previous issue with codependency and only focus on helping her instead of taking care of myself. What do I do? P.S. Thanks for everything that y'all do. This podcast is amazing, informative, and so relatable. I also have to confess that I have screamed the answers to trivia during an episode more than once. I'm working on it. So have I, Ryder. I think I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, but
That's
her
probably
answers
true.
were right.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Mine
And
are-
she doesn't have a microphone, so
That's true.
Right.
yeah, I
Nobody
mean,
winces in
we
pain.
can hear you just fine without
Yeah,
you screaming
I probably
the
don't
answers.
need to.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
fine.
This is my favorite kind of question, guys. You know why? Because she's already said that the person already has a therapist and in this case a psychiatrist. So
peasy.
you don't get to give that information.
Yes.
You don't get to give that advice.
That's right. We get to sidestep the obvious.
Also, the friend already has a support system with a boyfriend.
Love it.
Who
And it's
they're
very
combining
self-aware.
it with.
Very
Yeah.
self-aware. You know, the writer talking about.
So
I don't
this
wanna
is
slip
great
into
because Nick and
codependency.
Jim can't just give their good old same old advice.
We're gonna have to work, man.
Good job, Ryder.
Wait. Who says we can't?
Yeah. It won't be useful. We can do whatever we
We're
want.
adults. We
Yeah.
can say whatever.
The life coach is going to call you on it if you do, though.
That's true, and he has a jingle that
Yep.
we do not possess. The thing has authority to it. So we got to wake up, Tangeman. We got to offer some
Well,
real
here's the
advice
thing.
on this one.
Right
Can't use
off
our usual cop-outs.
right off the bat, it was funny because when I was putting the script together, I was reading through this. But the thing that was interesting, I'm reading all of this, and I'm like, man, she really cares a lot about her roommates. Seems like she's really invested in a roommate, almost to the point where maybe it's kind of starting to become unhealthy.
And then it
because it's
finishes
like,
with codependency.
I know I've got past codependency issues. Like,
Ding.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
I love this letter.
Yeah, no,
here's the
very
thing.
self-aware.
There's a lot of things in here that I totally get and I empathize with. One of the biggest issues is being supportive and letting someone vent. And how do you balance giving feedback versus just letting them vent? because at some point the venting has to stop. You can't just vent yourself into health.
Not with that attitude.
People get healthy and they make progress. They make changes in their lives through action. Venting is great. Venting is useful, but at some point there has to be a change in behavior that changes the situation or changes the circumstances enough where something different occurs. Now, with your roommate, it sounds like it's very challenging because you're also dealing with depression. So there's some mental health stuff going on. But like if she's in this environment where she hates her job and she continues to vent about this job and it's just not working out, like there's only so much of that venting you can take before you kind of have to say like, hey, look, you need to do something. You need to find a different job. You need to do something. But now you're telling her what to do. And it's a challenge. It's a difficult balance.
And that's, as a fellow codependent, for those of you playing Jim's Neurotic Bingo at home, go ahead and mark that square. Bingo, there it is. Got them all today. I'll tell you that one of the things codependents often struggle with is a desire to try to fix the other person. And so even embedded in this letter is sort of like, hey, tell me what to do. How can I coach? How can I help? How can I instigate change? And so...
so we're not going to answer it because we don't want to participate in the codependency. We win!
Yay!
That's all the time we have today.
Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. So it is tricky because Nick's right. That transformation does need to happen, and it will over time. Where I would come alongside him and refine some of that a little bit and sharpen the pencil is to add a little bit more that's maybe codependent targeted. So we have something in psychology that are called the stages of change. And we use this a lot in addictions work, but we also use it everywhere. And one of the things that we're trying to figure out sometimes is where is somebody on their ability and awareness to actually make the changes they're complaining about. Venting about it, describing the problem, being upset at the problem is actually located in the stages of change. We don't look at that and think, oh, geez, they're not even getting started. No, it exists. It's part of the spectrum of what we think's happening, and it does have the ability to grow from there. So I do want to locate that first and say it's not like you're off the road. You're on the road, your roommate's on the road, and there's a future from there, and this is actually part of the process. We just don't know where the momentum's going. That would be my first point. My second point would be, I really hear this as a victory in a lot of ways. Depression is a corrosive, really difficult condition. And when you're talking about not long ago, this person wanted to die and basically pulled the emergency brake, which is a great feature that cars really should have in the modern era. It just feels like that's a great idea.
Agreed.
Patreon.com/therapy. Find out what the hell we're talking about. But, this person was on death's door not very long ago. The fact that this individual still has a job, is still participating in that job, and is right now really leaning on the roommate as that complainy support network that might be getting her over that threshold, I'm fine with all of that. The question I start to ask, though, is, as that co-supporter, as that caretaker person, how do we also think about self-care? How do we think about boundaries? Because we are pretty enmeshed. I don't hear the writer, Nick, talking too much about, like, I hate this sucks. Like the first letter today was a caretaker saying, I'm pretty burned out. Mm-hmm. This one I don't hear saying, I'm pretty burned out. I hear the writer saying, hey, I struggle with codependency. We're really enmeshed. I'm watching my person struggle here. I'm really trying to be here for her. I'm not sure what to do, right? And like, how can I be helpful? So I'm not looking at that going, boy, we really got to infuse self-care into this, because I'm not hearing a lot of burned out.
No, I would agree.
Yeah. But I do think there's talk about boundaries.
I think part of it is knowing your job, knowing your role.
Yes, that's it.
Because, great job good on you for working on your MSW. Great choice, very marketable.
Here we go.
It is the way to go. Absolutely.
See, Nick doesn't have a good answer for this, so he's just commending you now.
No.
All of his answers have already been taken up.
That's right.
I think I nailed it with the know your role.
And the fact that you picked the same masters as Nick, I'm sure he's impartial in his celebration of your choices.
True. But I think knowing your role, knowing that even though you are going through your masters, you're not her therapist.
That's right.
You are her roommate.
That's
you are
right.
her confidant. You are her cheerleader. You're her support, but that's it. And you have to, it's very frustrating because you have to know what is your job and what is not your job. And you have to then be able to, assist in directing who can help with that. I'm not the person that can help with that. I'm the person here that gives you a hug when you're feeling down, that gives you a pep talk when you need it. I'm not the one that deals with X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And you got to kind of know your boundaries, and which can be very tough to do if you have, self-identified as, kind of that codependency tendency.
Yes.
Because you may want to take on more than you really should be.
Well, and I'll tell you again, as a fellow codependent, there's a creed we have in Al-Anon that we repeat all the time that I think you need to remind yourself over and over again, friend, is I didn't cause this, I can't control this, and I can't cure this. And that's what Nick's talking about, is knowing your role, which you're doing a great job at. We're celebrating you here because you said, hey, I'm trying really hard not to blend my professional development into my friend's care. I'm just trying to take the role of friend. But honestly, and this is where I just want everybody to hear me, if somebody's going through this kind of stuff in life, I'm not going to pretend like it's easy for you to sit in the family room, as the writer talks about, and hear the negativity and hear the sadness and hear the sorrow. And then also, as the writer says, to watch this person make perpetually difficult choices, right? To see that they struggle with instant gratification, to see them overspending, to see them griping about things that maybe they could take control over and manifest change. It's not easy to see those things. I get it. I understand. I am a therapist. I've been doing this for a long time. And sometimes I listen to people bellyache about a problem for a long time before they're ready to fix it. But one of the rookie mistakes that a lot of therapists make is not understanding the stages of change. And you have to realize, whether it's your friend or whether it's your patient, where they're at in their readiness to make change happen. And it's not your job to drive that readiness or to maneuver it to the next position. Honestly, it's oftentimes not even the therapist's job to make those things happen. It's our job to facilitate it. And oftentimes, if we're just going back to those first Rogerian principles, which you know what I'm talking about if you're a grad student, go back to Carl Rogers and you're training in client-centered therapy and sort of the core foundations of psychotherapy, stay in that lane, stay in unlimited positive regard, stay in celebrating the person, supporting the person, seeking to understand them rather than being understood by them with your suggestions and your ideas, empathizing with them as best you can and as much a non-judgmental way as you can. But then you're not the therapist, and that means that you don't have these ethical obligations. You can just be a human too. And that means you are allowed to tell your friend, hey, tell me what's going good in your life a little bit too. I need to hear some of that. Or, you know what, it's hard to watch you do the same thing over and over again. Can I tell you that it hurts me to watch you suffer? I'd love to see you make some change. Or I'd love to see you talk about the solutions. You're just the friend. You're allowed to do those things. A lot of people are afraid they're going to break their friend who's depressed, but we have to remember that humans are quite resilient. And you're not going to break them. You're still being present for them. But again, the 3 C's. You didn't cause this. You can't control this. You can't cure this. Your job is just to be there and be the comforter. And you're doing a great job, writer. And we all empathize with you. But again, we point you back to NAMI. Go back to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There are groups. They meet online. And those are for you, friends, families, advocates of those who are struggling. You are helping her. You should be helping yourself as well. We want to see all those pieces in motion at the same time.
I think we nailed that one.
Smoking. Just absolutely stuck the landing. Also, if you're not already seeing a therapist, get into therapy.
We got there.
She didn't say she was seeing somebody. Yeah. Just remember, friend, all of us who are therapists, it is very common that at some point in our career we have worked with somebody. Dentists do not drill their own teeth, and stylists do not cut their own hair. And so it is very normal that we sit down with somebody else and unpack our puzzle pieces and get that collaboration and work to try to grow and try to heal and sometimes just try to coordinate our thoughts. That way they don't show up in the wrong place at the wrong time. So self-care, my friend, that's the name of the game. And you'll find that if you just stick in it, things get better. And they already are. Your friend is already starting to turn a corner and make the right decisions. It might be longer than you can stand, but it sounds like the curve is bending in the right direction. And it sounds like her professional team's with her. Great question. And thanks for supporting our show and for shouting out your trivia answers. We hear you.
Yes.
A little louder in the back, and we'll be able to get there. So we are at the end of our wonderful extended cut Thanksgiving episode, and super thankful to all of you who have supported us in this project throughout the years. If you're an advocate of mental health and you hear letters like these that we've gotten today and you feel like, hey, I'm glad this kind of show exists, and I'm glad this thing is functioning, and I'm glad that folks are getting some help, and sometimes we're the only therapist folks are going to hear from. If you ever feel like supporting the show, go down to patreon.com/therapy. This is not a project that funds us in our personal lives or anything like that. All the proceeds that we get at Patreon really just finance the show, just make it possible, just pay the bills kind of thing. This is a public service. We're trying to just make a difference. So if that matters to you and you find that this is something you care about and you just want to help and put a hand to the car and push us along, patreon.com/therapy, any level of giving is just deeply appreciated. And we're just thankful for the community that has surrounded us and made this thing possible. And we've got some new people to celebrate.
Sure do.
New folks on board. Who joined the team?
Well, we got 2 new TheraPals. We got Kit. Welcome, Kit.
Hi, Kid.
And Lee Popsicle.
Lee Popsicle, technically a TheraPal, but a very specific amount of giving, Lee Popsicle. I believe Lee Popsicle, so the TheraPod level is $5. Lee Popsicle gave $4.20.
Yep.
That seemed like an interesting choice.
Yeah.
You do you, Lee Popsicle.
And we have a new TheraPod, Scoop NATO Bait.
Scoop NATO Bait.
Real name.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
Yep. So it's on the birth certificate, I saw it.
Right there. And of course, we want to thank our bosses, the Saccharine 16, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of the fan club, the TheraProducers. Thank you. By the way, PSA, we called the Saccharine 16. That is an inside joke from over a year ago. You can become a TheraProducer. People just join all the time and become TheraProducers.
What does that joke mean? I don't know.
We don't know. It was a March Madness joke, and we stuck with it. And I
It
think
wasn't funny then.
falsely communicates that there's a
One
limit.
day it'll be funny.
Doubt it.
If you become a TheraProducer, we thank you every show in the commercial breaks during the trivia and at the end of every show. So feel free, come over, become a TheraProducer, and again, put fuel in the tank. We appreciate every single one of our folks that have stuck with us. Our TheraProducers are the diehards, and they're the ones that have just made it possible. And on this Thanksgiving, we especially want to thank you guys. Thank you sincerely, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr. Mint, who's also been a guest on the show. So has Smitty, has been a guest with us in the Patreon version of the show at one point. Jake Schneider, we've had breakfast with him and his lovely wife Judy, who's also a TheraProducer with us as well. Kayla Lansbury's a longtime supporter. Nathan's hot dog scoop. We've broken beef with Nathan at the last Jock versus Nerd. He's a great person. Yeah. King of Student Loan Debt, Dr. Ben Don, who lives, of course, in the sandy beachfront of Indianapolis. Beautiful place. Crazy Manana Scoop, Mason Miller, who's always supporting everything that we do and is part of the Diet Bet with us. Carolyn Albert, longtime friend of the show. Leon Kassab, of course, is our resident lawyer, though he never asked for that job and continues to send us cease and desist. Kevin Chamberlain, who at one point was my personal dentist. Remember when he was giving me advice on my aligners?
Yeah, and he was saying, don't do that?
That's right. Yeah, don't ever listen to Jim about anything, even therapy stuff. Malia, right? Because we were calling her Malaya for a long time. Then we started hanging out with her in our Friday group and realized that's not right. Richard Macy, good friend of the show, go way back. Cindy Ash, always talking to us on Patreon, giving us great thoughts, great DMs, great comments. New Stick, big friend of the show. And first of name, breather of fire, dumb of ass, Lord Colin Stewart.
Who finally reached out about the blanket.
Yeah, and said, hey, blanket?
Yeah. Yep. Has
Glad
not
that
expired.
that happened.
Yeah. All of them great people.
Wonderful
All of them great
humans,
people.
and
mean,
deeply
except
thankful.
Mason, he's kind of an asshole. But
Yeah, Mason
the rest
ripped up
of them
my
are
book.
great.
Remember that whenever he
Yeah.
sent a video of him ripping up my book?
Oh, yeah, I like that guy.
Yeah. He's a great guy.
Oh, that's me. Isn't
That's
it?
you.
All right,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. If you
Whenever-
would like to hear this episode uncut and unedited
Yeah, you're fine.
and enjoy the spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy. And thank you for supporting mental health.
That's all the time that we have for this week's extended Thanksgiving session. And we want to thank our landlords, Matt and Mattingly's Ice Cream Social Podcast. And thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening the episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting that link we provided in your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter at PodTherapyGuys, on Instagram at PodTherapyGuys, and of course at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Felix the Cat.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
So the way you make the sliders, okay, the right way, you don't just starch it up, okay? You don't put extra stuffing and mash. That's dumb. You shouldn't do that. The way I do it, the way Jim's original slider works, you get the biscuit, okay, you cut that sucker open, you get a little bit of butter on there if you want to. Toast it if you want to. I don't like it crunchy, so I don't like them
This
toasted.
reminds me, do you ever watch The Office?